Hey y'all, from Spindle Mountain Mercantile. I am Heather. Welcome to my YouTube channel. It's my birthday, and here is what 58 looks like when you wake up. Yep, that's me today. And then I went outside and saw this, and I looked even more fabulous. We're working on cleaning out our storage sheds. Project number 1. So let's make some stuff with the things I found outside while my son is working on the organization. Whew, glad I didn't have to do that. I remember paying $3 for this at our local restore, and at the time I thought I would paint it and put transfers on it, but the more I looked at it, the more I liked it. This is just a rub-on transfer. I think it's a different kind, and it came right off with my fingernail. I used this little knife to try to get more off, and then I used 240 grit sandpaper to get the rest off. I didn't get a tiny bit of the top part off, but it was okay because I distressed the whole thing and it blended in. So here was my thought on why I changed my mind about what to do with this. I need to be more aware of the hours I'm spending on items. I wanted to see how long it would take me to work on this from start to finish if I didn't have to take off the hooks, paint it, wait for drying, and then put the transfers on, compared to how much time it would take if I did all of that, and then figure out the time difference. So from start to finish, not counting how much time it took to set up my camera equipment or to gather my supplies, this project took just over 16 minutes. And price-wise, I think I can probably sell this for about the same price I could sell it for if I did all those other things. I think it would have taken me quite a bit longer, especially if you count drying time. So for the effort I put into this, I'm kind of thinking this is a really good thing. I need to look for more things that I don't spend so much time working on. That said, I'm still going to find things that I want to change just because I love doing it. I blew off the dust and got out my Fairy Tale Florals book by Iron Orchid Designs and found some florals I thought would complement the colors that are already on this coat rack. Applying Iron Orchid Designs transfers is super easy. Simply cut out the design you're looking for in the shape you need to fit on your object. When you get it on your object exactly where you want it, give it a little rub with your hand just to give it a cursory stick. Every IOD book comes with a transfer stick, which I can't find, so I'm using my scissors. Use that transfer stick to rub the entire transfer, and once you have it stuck, pull back the carrier sheet with one hand and rub with the stick. I'm using my fingernail here as you pull away. If anything doesn't stick, just lay the carrier sheet back down and rub it again. It should stick, and if it doesn't, it's probably because you didn't wait for your paint to dry. The next transfer I'm doing is on the top where the shelf is, and I'm covering up those spots that were worn out before. I need to do different layers, and I'm going to cut a couple of different flowers to make that effect that just looks like it's a bigger transfer than it was originally. I'm just going to speed things up a little and let you watch this process as well as the rest of the transfers, and I'll catch up with you at the end. The only thing I wish I would have changed is maybe look up what this means, because what if it's like some horrible tattoo tale where, somebody thought they were getting live, love, and life and they got I like eating purple winged chickadees. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's a hotel that's white at where the boats come in. But if anybody knows, tell me. Other than that, this turned out great, and I will be doing stuff like this again to put in my booth. I am pleased with it, and you know what? I might even keep something like this in my house. What do y'all think? Project number 2. I was really happy when I found this at Goodwill for $2.99 on half price day, so a buck 50. Has plastic knobs, but they are good quality. They screw out. I had one just like this at Christmas that I put a Christmas tree on. They had glued those knobs in, and boy, I couldn't get them out, so I had to tape them. This has some bubbles underneath the paper mache that they put on, or decoupage. Yeah, decoupage, not paper mache. I'm just using some 240 grit sandpaper to rub those down and make them smooth. Now that didn't work all the way, but it's okay because I'm going to put some paint inlay over this and then I'll top it with a transfer. Once I have that sanded down, I'm going to add a coat of Debbie's Design Diary in the color Apothecary. It is my favorite color, and you guys can probably tell that. It's what cheers me up when I'm down. It sells really good in my booth. I don't have anything bad to say about Apothecary. I do sell Debbie's DIY in my booth in upstate South Carolina, but I don't do mail order. However, Debbie has provided a link I can give to my customers so they can go to her website. And if they use that link to make any purchases, Debbie will give me a small compensation and not raise your price. I will leave that link in the description. Anybody who does that, I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate Debbie for making that opportunity available. Thanks, y'all. I'm using Iron Orchid Designs paint inlay book called Lattice Rose. I'll just be using the one sheet that has stripes and roses on it. Now I also sell IOD in my booth, but I don't do mail order for it either. I'll give you a link for my friend Heather over at Create Your Own Cozy. She has a great supply of IOD and does mail order. Or if you want to shop in person, you can find a stockist near you by looking on the Stockist Finder tab on Iron Orchid Designs website. Instead of just finding out how wide the board is and then cutting this page so that it fits, I'm lining it up so that those roses are in the center, and then I cut off some of the outside lines. Those are kind of like grain sack lines, and I just ended up cutting off the two smaller lines on each side of the sheet where it fits just right on this board. And then I did measure the distance top to bottom, and that's where I cut it. I left a tiny little bit at one end, and that's okay. It makes it easier to pull away from your paint when you do a paint inlay. Sometimes it's hard to get your finger under there after it's dried, so I actually like to leave a little piece up if I can. I was kind of nervous to use paint inlays in the beginning, and rightfully so, because I did mess up. So I recommend starting with just little pictures or cutting off a small part of a big picture. Once I got used to it, it was pretty easy though, and I really like how they turn out. To apply a paint inlay, you get the inlay wet and it goes right on top of your freshly painted surface. You have to move kind of quickly, but it's okay if you get it down in an awkward position and you have to smooth it out. You have just a little bit of time to straighten it out. And once you get it where you want it, you rub the entire thing and you get rid of the water. I've seen a lot of people use a brayer for this. It depends on the surface I'm working with, but I like to use my hands because I can actually feel if the water is gone or if there's a big bubble. I usually clean up my mess around the paint inlay when I'm done because sometimes some paint will smear out, and I don't want to have like drips coming down from the water either. And then I let it dry, and you want to let it get really dry. It takes at least 30 minutes, like in a very warm place or maybe out in the sun, which is what I prefer doing. I don't know if that's recommended or not, so do that at your own risk. This is going to sound redundant, but when the paint inlay is completely dry, you want to spray it to get it wet. Now, I'm using a regular spray bottle that I just put water in, but a mister is recommended. I will leave a link for one of those in my description. I buy mine at Amazon. I just have it out in the she shack and I'm in the house and I didn't want to go out there and get it. After the entire surface is wet, let it sit for about 60 seconds, and then you can start pulling away the paper and see the magic that is a paint inlay done correctly. After about 2 hours, I started distressing my piece. Now, if you don't like imperfections, then paint inlays might not be your gig. Unlike transfers where the entire picture goes down, paint inlays sometimes leave little pieces of paint still on the paper from which you applied them. And you can use them up to about 3 times. Each time you use them, they'll get a little bit more faded. So these are made to already look distressed or aged. I want both of those from this piece. I want it to look aged and distressed. That's why I'm going over the whole thing with 240 grit sandpaper. When I get to the stripes where the paint inlay is, I'm going to go in the same direction up and down to match the stripes and the roses. Of course, this is personal preference. If you don't like aged or distressed looks, don't do this. I sealed the paint inlay with one good coat of Big Top by Debbie's DIY. I'm doing this because I'm adding a transfer. I have added transfers to the top of paint inlays without any worry, but I wasn't sure yet if I wanted to put a paint inlay on this, and I thought, you know what, I might as well be ahead of the game and put some sealer on this in case I don't. Then it'll be done. But you know me, more is more, so I added more. I already taught you all about how to do transfers in this video, so I'm just going to speed up during this part. Just watch if you want to know a little bit more about layering. That's what I did with this stem, and I also layered an extra flower in the top part. I don't have any film showing it, but I did decide at the end after I applied this last coat of Debbie's Big Top that it needed a little bit more distressing on the roses. I wanted them to match the same aged look and distressed look as the rest of the plaque. So I used my 240 grit sandpaper and went in an up and down motion so that it would match. I mean, I want it to match and look distressed. I don't want it to look messy. So I didn't go side to side. I think it turned out really good. It's just what I wanted. What do you guys think? Project number 3. One of the things I've discovered doing a YouTube channel is I get really self-conscious. And one of the reasons I'm self-conscious is because I don't know if y'all will like my content. I make a lot of frames on this channel and I change a lot of pictures in and out of different frames. I hope you're okay with that. The reason I do that is because I sell a lot of pictures in my booth. People really like them. Now, when I found this frame in the stash, I knew I had to redo it really quickly because I have been hanging on to the perfect picture for this frame and I want to get it in my booth around Easter time. The picture I'm saving, I'm going to call Just One Touch. It's a depiction of verses in the Bible from Matthew 9:20 through 22, and it is so powerful. I hope you will read those verses if you don't already know the story and find out what I'm talking about. The first thing I did was remove the hardware and set it aside because I will reuse it, and then I cut out the paper carefully so that I can also reuse it. I want you guys to know that when I send you to my description to use a link to buy something from Amazon, I don't make a lot of money. I make about 5%. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's a little more. It never changes your price though. But when I show you something like this, I'm not doing it just to make a buck. I'm doing, or 21 cents. I'm doing it because I want to show you the right tool for the job. These little grabber things I'm using right now are awesome. I see a lot of other content creators using them and they're perfect for things like pulling out nails. They do not work very good for these types of staples. You have to use another screwdriver or something to push them up. Here's the best tool for this job. They are fencing pliers. I don't make very much money. I'm not doing this so I can make a buck or 21 cents, whatever it is I make when you buy these from my description link. I'm showing you this because it's so incredibly easy. You pinch together the staples and then tilt the handles and see the rounded head? It just pulls them right out. You can get these at any farm or hardware store. I also want to show you about this little magnet. Out in my she shack, I have one that's a bowl. I think I got it at Joann Fabrics, but you can get them at Hobby Lobby or any craft store. They are the easiest way to pick up little things like this off of your countertop, and I highly recommend you get one. Usually mats are really easy to remove from the backer board, but sometimes the backer board is a piece of cardboard that has the picture on it. And for some reason, when they put the mats on those, they're attached a lot more securely. With this one, I messed around a little trying to see if I could disconnect it with right here with my razor blade knife and it just wouldn't work. I mean, it was so tight. I couldn't get it all the way through. So I thought maybe right here on the edge, I could run my knife in between that and nope, it's kind of like it's all one piece of cardboard. I really don't understand at all how they make these. The only way I could figure out to get this to work was to get my knife in this part as far as I could so that those two pieces of cardboard are separated on the side that's close to the picture. So I just kept going back and redoing, and each time I made the knife go in further. Now make sure you keep your hand where you won't stab yourself because since this is such a tight squeeze, that knife could pop out pretty easily. Once I had it far enough in from the inside edge, I turned it over and on the back, I put a cut that I knew would not go through all the way. I just kept cutting until I felt it hit that part where I had separated the cardboard. I went back on the other side and made sure that there was a section. You can see a little air through there, and you can see it here too. I'm going to turn it over one more time and put my knife through it so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I hope this makes sense. So where that floral picture is goes still underneath that mat a little bit deeper. And here I'm showing you what was there. It was some kind of really strong double-sided tape, and that's what they stuck that other piece of cardboard down with. So many colors would really go well with the picture I have to put in this frame, but I decided that my favorite, Apothecary, would be the most complimentary and would not distract, or detract from the colors in the picture. The lighter colors are what matches the Apothecary. There's a darker blue I could have used, but I just wanted this to be an accent and not like an outline. Now, y'all know I am nothing if not a rule breaker, right? So always seal your clay-based paint. It's water soluble, and if it gets wet, it's going to dilute in the water. It'll reconstitute. I did not seal this because I'm putting it under glass, and I didn't want it to change at all. I want it to be super matte, and I thought if I put a sealer on it, even if it's a matte sealer, that might change the look. But I'm not worried about it getting messed up at all because, like I said, it will be under the glass. Now I'm spraying it here with water, and you want to use a mister for this ideally, and I'm doing that so I won't have any brush strokes. And now it's time for you to see the picture that goes with this frame perfectly. Was I wrong? No, no, I was not wrong. That's the robe of Christ on the right-hand side in the blue, and she's so desperate just to get one touch, just one touch. I need to make sure that I have all of the parts of the picture I want within the mat, so I have to lay the mat down on top of the picture. Make sure you don't have any wet paint on any of the sides of your mat where you would get your picture messed up. I waited for this to dry. And now, so I won't cut through all the way to my table, even though it's not the best table in the world, I still don't want to cut it too much. I'm just scoring this so it just barely cuts the top and leaves a line so I know where to cut it with my scissors. I use Ranboard tape for all my pictures because it's the best. I will leave a link for that in my description. You can buy it for a couple dollars less at Lowe's, and it's at Home Depot. Don't know if it's less or more though than my link in Amazon. I had to do this part twice. I just put two pieces of tape on lightly, and I made sure that her veil and her hand were all the way in the right place. They weren't, so I just moved it, and since there's only two pieces of tape, that was easy. Now, you know how when you drop a rock in water, it makes a ripple? Well, if you have a piece of canvas sticking up on the back, that will make a ripple elsewhere. It'll make it look like there's a lump in your picture, and it won't look good from the front. So you want to make sure that canvas is perfectly flat. Now I'm going to go see how I rubbed my hand across it. I do that each time I put a new piece of tape on, and I just tore the ram tape in half lengthwise and put a piece on every edge. After I made sure the picture was flat and smooth, I gave firm but gentle pressure on the back, and I used my framing driver to put the staples in the side to keep everything in place. You want to give firm but gentle pressure so you don't break the glass, and you put in just as many as you need. You don't need a lot. I put one in each of the small sides and two on the longer sides. You can see that green thing behind there. That's because my table has wet paint on it, and I don't want to get any paint on this frame. A lot of times I paint the frames, but this frame was perfect. It has kind of a beige around the outside edge, and then the front is gold, and it just looks I'm telling you, it is the perfect frame for this picture. If you're not used to these staplers, right there is where the staples come out. And usually they come out at the bottom, and you can't see my hand here, but now you can see it, and I'm showing you that it comes out this direction. So it goes out the side. So back to that green thing behind my picture. I'm sorry, everything is so wobbly. I probably should have just put a piece of plastic or a piece of drop cloth down, but I like to use my drop cloth in projects. I don't want to get paint on my paint drop cloth. Hello? You will see me flip pictures over time and time again. That's because I'm continuously checking to make sure after each step I don't have any wrinkles or bumps. I have gotten to the very end, got everything done, sealed up, and turned it over, and there was a huge old bump in the picture. I had to take everything apart and redo it. So I avoid that at all costs now. With the next step, I'm just putting the regular paper that was on there back in place, and I will use my ram board tape again to attach that to the frame. I've gotten really good at this. Usually I do top and bottom and then the sides, but since this is an octagon, I decided to go around in one continuous loop. I'm not going to show you all the details of that first part. I'm just going to kind of speed through it, and when I get to the last two, I'll pop in and tell you what I did, because I didn't have this perfected until I got to that point. I could have wasted a lot less tape, but I just wasn't sure. So here's how I could have wasted less tape. I cut that tape a little bit wider than the frame, and then I went back and cut it right at the frame. Had I cut it right at the frame the first time, I could just place that piece on the next corner. But I just wasn't sure of myself yet because, like I said, I've never done an octagon shaped frame before. But this first one I did that with. I just had to trim it a little bit with my scissors and it fit perfectly. The one thing that's most different about doing this kind of frame than a square or rectangular frame is that you have to make sure both corners match. So you have to make sure that from the corner, each side goes all the way out flat against your frame. And how I cut my tape is at a very exaggerated angle. So I make sure my knife blade is long enough to go way over the side, and I lean it back over the back of the frame and I cut it at that angle. And that way it gets really close to the edge of the frame without being able to see it from the front side of the picture. The last step is to go back over all of the tape and press it down very firmly on both the frame and the back of the picture. Again, don't press too hard because you don't want to break the glass. Do this last because if you have a place that the tape isn't exactly where it's supposed to be, you want to be able to lift it up and then press it down again. I replaced the sawtooth hook and now it's done. What do you guys think? Was I right? Is this the perfect frame for this picture? Let me know in the comments. Y'all, I appreciate you so much being here. I am humbled and blessed by the positivity my channel has received and given back to me. Thank you so much. I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful Easter weekend. And as always, I hope you are blessed. Bye.